And one. All right, welcome back. I am excited this week to have Michael Clark join Bullpen Sessions today. Michael, welcome aboard.
Andy, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. This will be a fun conversation. One, you're an insurance brother, right? So we're not going to spend any time talking about health insurance and the intricacies of health insurance, right? That's not sexy. That doesn't interest anybody. But what I really want to use today's episode, Michael, is to talk about one, your baseball career, because it's obviously it's very similar to mine, and this is why I'm excited to talk about it. But more importantly, I want to talk about the work you're doing, not only outside your career as an insurance advisor, but what you're doing to help young baseball players today, which I think is really cool. So I thought a good place to jump off from would be your high school career, because I did a little research on you, and I'm kind of a sports geek. And I noticed you started at Massey High School in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And ended up transferring to American Heritage down near Miami. Now, I also know those are two football powerhouses, yet we're talking a baseball story. So I'm actually curious, back at that age, what led you from transferring from Ohio down to Florida?
Yeah, so I actually started at a school, it's a smaller private school in Akron, Ohio, which is called Akron-Hoban.
Okay.
And up until about the last 5 or 6 years, Hoban was not known as a perennial powerhouse when it came to football. Now they've won, I think, 5 out of the last 6 state championships. So they've obviously had a lot of success lately. But at the end of the middle of my sophomore year, my mom who's very involved in my career as an athlete for all sports, wanted me to transfer to a Division I school. So Massillon, Washington was just coming off of a state runner-up appearance. They had lost to St. X, and it was a very, very close game. But they were returning a number of their starters, and their quarterback was graduating, who was a 3 or 4 year starter, was a senior. And so it was a great opportunity for me to transfer into a Division I school that had an offensive line that averaged 270 pounds across the board, had a couple 3, 4, 5-star athletes. And so, we decided to do that. We relocated, we bought a house down in Massillon, and I transferred to become a Tiger. And if anybody's familiar with the Massillon, Washington Tigers, there's a movie they made, I think back in, the 90s, Go Tigers. And it was kind of the story before, the Odessa, Texas type rivalries. I mean, it is a football town through and through, so much so that, boosters, I mean, it's incredible some of the stories that you hear over the years of how football has taken precedence. We got a huge indoor football facility. So as opposed to, 20,000 seat stadium, brand new turf almost every other year. And then they've got an indoor football field as well, as a training complex. But great people, great tradition, and played there for 2 years, had the injury bug, similar to, I think, a lot of people in baseball as well, but couldn't stay healthy. So I, wasn't recruited at the level that we were hoping I was going to get recruited at, and decided that, maybe the path isn't football. So transferred, then went, my mom did the same thing she did for me when I was at Hoban, was okay, where can he go to be, what will give him the best opportunity to get seen by scouts? So American Heritage was coming off of, I think, a national championship or national runner-up. They had Eric Hosmer, a couple of big name guys that, ended up making it to the show. And it was also a place that she loved to visit, which was, right outside of Fort Lauderdale. So we packed up and we moved down there, and it was myself, my sister, and my mom. And, we went in, I think, mid-year, actually right after the football season, my senior year, we transferred down. She rented a place and got in there with, American Heritage, and got connected to that program. And it was, just the same tradition that I think Massillon had on the football side, American Heritage had on the baseball side.
But they too have it on the football side too, don't they? Haven't they become known as a football powerhouse?
Yeah, they do. And I think they just set a record with the most draftees. I don't know if they had something on the NFL draft. The most guys drafted in a single class. And it was like 4 or 5 guys came from American Heritage.
Wow. So we're here to talk about your baseball career. Little did I know you were one hell of a football player. What was your position?
I was a quarterback.
Oh, okay. And a southpaw, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So nice. All right. So you're down at American Heritage playing in, baseball hotbed. Yeah. As a kid growing up in Wisconsin, you look at the kids from Florida, Georgia, Texas, and California with some envy, right? When did you realize, or when did you start getting the looks I know you started your college career at NC State. When did you start getting the looks from the major college programs as a left-handed pitcher?
I think one of the biggest differences was the network that my head coach had down at American Heritage. Whereas up here, he had a great network around football, the football coach did. So you could get in front of, any of the MAC schools or any of the, smaller D1 schools that I could have potentially played at. And down there it was, okay, let me make a call. And there's 20 scouts at our first game, so I went from playing in front of maybe 5 scouts the entire year to we've got 20 scouts at a game or even a practice, and that was a big eye opener. Another thing too was the competition. I mean, in Ohio, you're lucky to see if somebody's throwing a righty or even a lefty that's 88, 90. I mean, they're a stud. People know them in the community and the county. I mean, they're one of the top players. Every team down in South Florida has somebody throwing 90. I mean, and not only that, but they can throw off speed for a strike, whereas up here, you didn't see it as often. So it was definitely a transition to a completely different environment when it came to not only competition, but I'd say the resources too, from a coaching standpoint.
I'd be ignorant if I didn't acknowledge your mother. That is one supportive mom. And I think about how supportive my mother was. My dad was the head coach at our high school. But when I think of a supportive mother, like she was at every game, she was cleaning the uniforms, but taking it to the next level where you're literally willing to move just so your child has a better chance is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, she left everything. So
that's
I was
amazing.
very, very fortunate.
Do you believe making that move down to American Heritage did set you up to play Division I college baseball because of the level of competition that you saw at that level versus a lot of kids coming from small towns or lesser competition, and now they're playing Division I? It's like, whoa, everybody's all state here.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt in my mind that played a major role in getting not only more exposure for me, but getting me more exposure to the players around me. I had guys on my team that are still playing, that are big leaguers, that just having that kind of that type of communication, hey, how should I be, gripping this changeup? Well, here's what you should change. Your thumb is too high on the ball versus, in Ohio. I mean, no offense. Again, we just didn't. Our head coach was our math teacher. Our head coach down there was, he played in the bigs. I mean, he had, 15 years under his belt in pro baseball. So the exposure of the experiences that they went through, the training, even the mindset of expectations, it completely opened up, doors that would have never been open for me up here.
That's interesting. Baseball geek in me wants to know any guys you played with that we are still in the league today.
So yeah, I mentioned, Hosmer, Devin Murrow was our shortstop. He's going in and out. So I played summer ball with Manny Machado.
Oh, wow.
I played summer ball with Nick Castellanos. I played summer ball with Stephen Barron. I mean, you look at the guys that I was exposed to being down there. I played for the Florida Legends and the Florida Bombers. And every single one of them either got drafted or went to, Miami or Florida. Steven Perez, Paco Rodriguez. I mean, a lot of these guys that are household names, they were in that small circle in South Florida at the time when I was there.
Well, not only just names, but these are guys playing at the top of Major League Baseball right now. We're talking about some all-stars. So, wow, that's impressive. Well, the transition continued because after a year or two at NC State, you end up transferring to Kent State back up in Ohio. What led to that transition?
Yeah, I was, I don't want to say I was a, highly touted prospect, but I was going in with the expectation that I was fighting for that Sunday position, which in the ACC freshman Sunday was a big opportunity, a big role for me. And, I went in and I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't throw a strike. My head wasn't in the right place. My mom actually passed away as soon as I got to campus, so I was mentally wasn't 100% there. And then, like I said, physically, I just couldn't get it done. I couldn't throw strikes. It wasn't a good place for me. And it was the best coach I had ever had. Elliott Avent was, he was an on-field general, but in a sense that everybody respected him. You knew that he had your best interest in mind. And, it was a very difficult decision to leave, but I needed some sort of stability. And coming home, my grandparents were up north, so I came back to Akron, wasn't even going to continue playing. And then, they said, hey, Kent State, you should look at them. They made it to a regional the year before. I think they lost to Texas, Taylor Youngman. And so I enrolled at Kent State, and I tried out for the team. And, day one of tryouts, Coach Strickland came over and he said, hey, go sit on the bench. We're going to have you on the team. So it was, and it was great because I don't want to say I didn't care, but I was getting back to having fun, versus at NC State, there was a lot of pressure to be the guy. At Kent State, it was, well, I don't really care if I play or not. I'm ready to let it go. And it kind of, reinvigorated the flame within me to play the game that I love and the competition. So it was the best thing that I could have ever done. And luckily I walked into two fantastic coaches, so it's not like Scott Strickland was an incredible coach. He's been incredible at Georgia since he left Kent. And then Coach Birkbeck, one of the best pitching coaches in the nation.
Well, and I think that's such a powerful message because today, when you look at the kids that are getting recruited out of high school in baseball, honestly, my opinion is a lot of kids are out punting their coverage with the schools they're going to because they got exposure at some tournament or some camp. And then they go there and they don't play. And, these mid-major, we could probably call Kent State, just like UW-Milwaukee, was a mid-major Division I program, but there's some damn good baseball being played. And we're about to talk about one really cool story, the Kent State 2012 season. But I want to go back quickly and ask you a question because I want parents of players to hear this. Out of high school, you got drafted, right? Mm-hmm. You got drafted in the 32nd round by the Red Sox. Why didn't you sign?
I actually went up. So when the Red Sox had their draft that year, and I don't know if they still do it, but they invite all the players to come up and play at Fenway for like a draftee game. So my whole family, and I got drafted on my birthday, so we made a big ordeal out of it. My grandmother, who doesn't fly, got on a train, went to Boston. We met there, we had a really nice time. Got to meet, entire ownership, coaches, everybody was there. And I played in a game, and it was it was a great experience. But my mom had always, and she wanted me to sign. To be honest, she wanted me to sign, and I'm so glad I didn't, because if I would have signed, I needed structure. I needed somebody to not just teach me baseball. I needed somebody to teach me life, and that's exactly what NC State and Coach Avent did. And the things that have made me successful in my career now, I learned on the field, or I learned, in the locker room from coaches, so, and especially in baseball. I think baseball is one of the greatest teachers of all time.
I agree.
You're going to fail. No matter what you do, you're going to fail. And it's about that next pitch. It's about that next at bat. And that's what baseball teaches you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because, in the short time I was in the Brewers organization, I remember playing with a few guys that came out of high school. And these guys were drafted 30th, 40th, 40s, in the 30s and the 40s rounds. And one, the money's not that great, right? Yeah. As a signing bonus. But two, these kids only lasted a few years, but now they have nothing. Yeah. Like you said, they lack the structure. So I'm glad you said that, because I think for most, when you're 18 years old, you're still, let's be honest, especially as a boy, you're lacking structure.
You're a kid.
Yeah. Well, now let's talk about, this is where I really want to talk about. It's your 2012 season at Kent State. Timing's perfect. College World Series just ended. And back in 2012, Kent State had a good team, but you guys went on a magical run. And I want to talk about this because I love these Cinderella stories. And, going back to the tournament, you guys qualified for the NCAA tournament, right? You, if I have my math correct, you were a 3 seed in the Gary Regional, where Purdue was number 1. Talk about, you guys end up winning that regional. Yeah. You knock off Purdue, you knock off Kentucky. Like, talk about what it was like to be a 3 seed there and end up coming out of that regional.
If I could, Andy, I'm going to take you back a couple weeks before that, because there was a moment that kind of lit the fire for us, and we had a really slow start to that year. I think we were down in Georgia Tech, the first weekend. I think we lose 2 out of 3. We go out. I know we go out west. Because I remember we played against Aaron Judge and a couple other guys out there that are big name guys, Chris Bryant. And, we just have a very slow start, which isn't uncommon for a, team that's in the Midwest, because I think the first time we were out at Georgia Tech was the first time we'd been outside. I mean, because there was snow back in Ohio. But it was a very, mediocre start to the year. And we got into MAC, we got into MAC play. And again, nothing crazy. I mean, we're splitting, we're winning 2 out of 3 against teams we should be sweeping. And then I remember we get to the turning moment, Bowling Green. So I don't know if you've ever been out in Bowling Green, but we had a, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday game at Bowling Green. And we have our Friday night game, and I don't remember if we win or not on the Friday night game. I think we win the Friday night game. And then, I hope the coach doesn't watch this, but we all go out Friday night. We got caught, so he knows we went out. We all go out Friday night, and as you know, like every morning you've got a team breakfast, and everybody should be at the team breakfast at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., whenever it is. And we go out Friday night, and we're out until like 3 or 4 in the morning. So, and there's a lot of us. There was like maybe a half dozen or 10 of us that go out, and they're all starters. And we go out to some bar, and we're having a great time, and come back, we're quiet coming back. We don't get caught. We get up in the morning at like 6, and because I remember there was like 3 rooms that were right next to each other. And we just had the doors open. So we were all, going back and forth, and the alarm goes off, and like, all right, let's go take the bus to breakfast. And we're like, I can't, we'll cash it in on breakfast this morning. We'll get something later. So nobody goes to breakfast. And the coaches are there ready to, for the Saturday game. And there's, 7 people at breakfast, and they're all, freshmen. And so Coach Strickland, comes to the rooms, and he's furious, which I would be too if I was the coach. Why wasn't anybody at breakfast? Well, we weren't hungry, whatever. So eventually they find out that, we went out, and everybody skipped breakfast the next morning. And we have to run wind sprints for about 2 hours at their indoor facility as we get ready for our game. So we get there early, and he's, every single person, he's going down the line. Michael Clark, I gave you an opportunity. I gave you new life, and this is how you repay me. I won't say any names, but hey, you got a chance to get drafted this year to the next guy, and you're going to do this. And so we're all running wind sprints for hour and a half, 2 hours straight. We get ready for the game, the Saturday game, and it's a close game. It ends up, and he said everybody suspended that went out. So, it was like there was probably 10 of us that he suspended, because I think he figured that, all right, these are the guys I can suspend, and we can still win. And I was one of the ones who got suspended. So he's like, stay in the dugout, be a good teammate. You're not playing today. So it ends up going into the 8th or 9th inning, and we're down, or we're up 1 run. And he says, Clark, go to the bullpen. I don't have cleats, because I didn't expect to be playing. So I borrow cleats, and I grab a glove, and I go down there, and I warm up. They call me into the game. I strike out the first 2 guys on 6 pitches. And I was on fire. And I was like, everything felt great. And then I just like hit this wall, and I walked the next guy. I hit the next guy. It ends up being bases loaded. And it was like their 3 or 4 hitter up. And like I said, we're up 1 run. I think it's the bottom of the 9th. And swinging bunt. And it's down the third base line. I run over to grab it, and I airmail it, into the parking lot. And they end up walking off and winning. And, that it was almost like that moment we realized, or I don't know whether we came together, what it was. And we always had great camaraderie at Kent State. I mean, we partied together. We did everything together. And that really turned our season around, because I think we kind of looked in the mirror and said, all right, we have an opportunity. We're having, we've got great players here. We've got 4 or 5 guys that are potentially going to get drafted. And I think we won, because we won the next game. It was like 30, it was like a football score, 30-15, I think, the next day. and we won like 17 or 18 in a row. So fast forward going into the Gary, Indiana regional. First game is against Kentucky. I think we were the 3 seed. So we're playing the 2 seed, and Valparaiso is a 4 seed. Purdue is a 1 seed. We're playing Kentucky, and it ends up going 21 innings. So I throw from, I think, the 16th inning to the 21st inning. We get the win. And then, our Saturday guy plays great pitches great on the next game. I think it was against Valparaiso and then we ended up winning it and going to the next, going to the Super at Oregon. But it really was that one moment. We went, it was incredible. If you go back and look at the scores from the regional, Super regional to the College World Series, even the MAC championship, we won like 10 games in a row by 1 run.
Wow.
So the bullpen was just, we had all the momentum in the world going into the College World Series.
Well, and I think that inflection point of your, the loss at Bowling Green, when you weren't, let's be honest, guys weren't prepared, is when you probably first took yourself seriously. Like, guys, yeah, we have great culture. We like to have fun, but this is a damn good team. We got to own it. Yeah. And I love that story, because here you are now, you come out of the Gary regional, you go to the Super regional against Oregon. And if looking at the stats historically, I think you guys lost the first game. It's 2 out of 3. You lost the first game, come back and win the last 2. Mm-hmm. What was that moment like, winning game 3? Little Kent State from the MAC conference going to the College World Series. What was that moment like?
So we win the first one, lose the second one, playing on the third game, and it was Derek Toadvine was on second base, and Jimmy Ryder was up to bat. They had a guy named Jimmy Sherfy, who's in the big leagues now. Mm-hmm. He's a great closer. He was 92 to 96 with a wipeout slider when we played him. And it was bottom of the 9th, and I think it was tied 2-2 or 3-3. And Jimmy hits a little duck fart over the shortstop's head, and it gets into kind of the Bermuda Triangle, shortstop, third, and left field. And you can, if you watch the video of it happening, Toadvine, our second baseman, was at second. As soon as he hits it, I think there was 2 outs. He's going, and his helmet, as he's rounding third, his helmet's flying in the air because he takes it off, and everybody's running in from the bullpen. The place is, everybody except for us is, you can hear a pin drop, and it was just, it was crazy. It was like, what are we doing? It's like, what is going on? This is like more than we can fathom. So we just rode it. We rode the wave.
Yeah. What was that like? So, here you are now. You're in the College World Series, and ironically, that year there was another Cinderella story going. I think Stony Brook made the College World Series as well. And you guys had a good run. You won 1, you lost 2, and you were eliminated. But you also beat, I think, in the process, the number 1 seed, Florida.
Yeah.
For, as a team and as an individual, I assume you got the chance to pitch at the World Series at Rosenblatt, downtown Omaha, or TD Ameritrade, downtown Omaha. What was that like?
Yeah, it was crazy. I threw against Florida in that game we won, and it was incredible. But if looking back, and again, I'd love to talk to some of the other guys to see what their thought process is, but I feel like we could have had a better attitude in the sense that, like, we can win this. I don't know that, we faced Arkansas, who had DJ Baxendale, I think, started against us. We faced Michael Roth, so we have faced all big league pitchers. But getting there, we were in a position. I look back at like Coastal Carolina a couple years ago. Anything can happen. And I think that we were just like so tied up in the moment that, you realize, like, man, we're 1 pitch away. We can win this whole thing. And I look back at it, like, because we were facing South Carolina on the elimination game, and there was a rain delay. So they ended up getting another day, and then they threw Michael Roth, who was lights out. But we were going to face a guy that, we could hit. I think he was like a righty that was, low 90s. Somebody that, isn't going to blow you away or doesn't have the stuff that Michael Roth had. And it's amazing to me, just after watching the recent College World Series, and the same thing, you're facing rain delays. It's amazing how at any time, NC State it's a great example. Nobody had them doing what they did. And I know they had this,
I want to ask you, can I add right there though? I had this question pegged for you. I want you to go back to your journey, transferring from Akron to Massillon, transferring from Massillon to American Heritage, NC State, transferring from NC State to Kent State. I mean, think about this journey, man. And then all of a sudden, here you guys are, a MAC school. You find yourselves in the College World Series. I want you to put yourself back. Imagine you're sitting in a position where you are in the winner's bracket, and then the NCAA says, oh, by the way, you can't make it to the finals because somebody tested positive for COVID. If that were you in that moment back in 2012, how would you have felt? I'm so curious because I feel so bad for those NC State kids.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's really nothing you can say. I mean, it's so unfortunate isn't even the right word. I feel for those kids so much because, forget the fact of the experience, and it's once in a lifetime experience doesn't capture what it is. It's so much more than that. But a lot of those kids were probably on the brink of, potentially being, you're talking millions of dollars that they could have earned additional if they would have had a great performance, or being invited to play for USA, or all of the different opportunities or doors that were shut the second that they were, I don't want to say disqualified, but you got so much respect for Coach Avent, the way he handled it. I think the entire NC State administration, but the players, I feel for them because they were playing so well. And I watched the regional, I watched their super regional, I watched it all the way through. So you got to, you start seeing these kids that, you feel like, right? You're watching them every weekend. I mean, it's the one thing that on TV that I really look forward to watching every year is the, college baseball playoffs, and these kids, they put it all on the line, and then the amount of pressure. I mean, at that young age, it's incredible seeing those guys succeed, and how they have fun doing it. So
And if you're unfamiliar with what happened and not a college baseball fan, so NC State, they were also a 3 seed, just like Kent State was, and they went on a magical run, got hot. This is why I love baseball. You made a point, like even at the major league level, it's why some of these wild card teams, man, are dangerous, because they got to win a lot of games at the end of the year and go into the playoffs with momentum. And that's exactly what you guys did. NC State did the same thing. They get to the College World Series. They knock off Vanderbilt right away, I believe it. Yeah. And so they're literally sitting in the winner's bracket, and Vanderbilt's got to come back and beat them twice, which they did beat them the first time. And then NC State is disqualified or told they can't move on because of a COVID test. And so a positive COVID test. It has nothing to do with your talent. It has nothing to do with your abilities and a score on a numbers on a scoreboard. It was literally a technicality of a positive COVID test. You feel so bad for those guys.
Yeah. But you look at that team, and I equate this to great coaching. That first game against Arkansas, they lost like 22-3. I mean, I saw, it was like, I was watching the game, I'm like, man, they're out of the league, and then they come back and they're just resilient, and they beat them twice.
Yep.
And it's like unbelievable. And then even down when they were down to 13 players.
Yeah.
I mean, how incredible was that? They were right there. And I don't know if you watched the game, but they were right there. They were one swing away from winning that game.
Yep.
And you got a pitcher starting first base that's never hit. It hadn't hit the entire year, and he goes 3 for 4.
And such a cool story for you as somebody who played at NC State and played for that coach who's still there today.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, man, and then you went on to have, you signed as a free agent with the Rangers, got that chance to play some professional baseball. Unfortunately, I think injuries took their toll a little bit on your professional career.
Yeah, I was just out of my league. I had kind of, I think I peaked my sophomore, junior year of college. I got drafted by the Astros. I want to say it was after the World Series year, and decided not to sign, came back, got a bump in velo, in that off season. And then that's when I was playing my best, but it was short, right? And then I get hurt, and I just never come back the same. So like a lot of guys, of guys, it's about how long your body can withstand it, I think. Because, I mean, even like in other sports, the LeBron James of the world that have had, I know he got hurt, this year, but he's had such a long career, a healthy career. And that's half the battle.
It is. I couldn't agree more. But here's what I love about you, man. You went on and you're having a very successful career in the insurance industry. However, you decided you wanted to give back to the game that has given you so much and given so many of us so much. And now you've started a company called Pro Mentor, and I'd love to have you talk about that. Which is, if I have my definition correctly here, my description correct, it's virtual training, virtual coaching that baseball players, young athletes can receive from some former Major League Baseball players. So why don't you talk about what you're doing with Pro Mentor? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. The problem that I saw is when I was my short time in pro ball, when I would come back in the off season, I needed a way to make money, and I did go to school, but I wasn't ready to start a career because I still had to train and I had to have the flexibility with my schedule. So I found a local place to give lessons, and they really propped up the fact that, hey, I played at Kent State. Hey, I played professional baseball, and they're going to charge $80 an hour to take lessons from me. And I loved working with kids. I still love working with kids. And I do, I do spend a lot of time throughout the year working with, family, friends, and even other kids that I see out there. So I figured, think if I could find a way to, eliminate the people that might not be in the business for the right reason, and people that don't have the pro ball experience and, even the high level college experience of being able to train these kids, and they're charging $40, $50, $60 an hour for these lessons, but what are they really getting out of it? And is it just a transaction to them? Because as baseball is a long journey. Your career, whether you stop playing in high school, college, or you make it to the big leagues, it's a long journey with a lot of ups and downs. And to have somebody as a mentor that can take you through, hey, here's how you deal with certain things. Hey, I just went 0 for 4. Here's how you step into the batter's box next time, and you have the right mindset, knowing that you're going to get a hit. One of the greatest experiences I've ever had playing baseball is I played with Russell Wilson when he was at NC State. And I'll never forget, we were playing UC Irvine in South Carolina at a tournament. And he was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. It was like on 12 pitches. And I'm serious. I mean, his swings looked terrible. Like I could go up righty and I would look, I'd look like I was having better. He couldn't hit this guy's slider. But every single time Russell went up to bat, he had this mindset that this is my opportunity. I'm going to get a hit here. My team needs me. There's no doubt in his mind. He's just like an internal optimist. And he ends up hitting a walk-off home run in his 5th at bat. And I always try and think like, man, his mindset, and I think that's obviously transitions to the football field, and you look at his success now, it's about that next play. It's about, the next at bat, or, even for us, it's the next meeting, and that's, I want to be able to transition that mindset, the coaching, not just the physical aspect of it, but the mentorship aspect of it, of how to not only approach an at bat, but how to approach life, because, life can be tough. Things happen. I mean, NC State was tragic, right? But a lot worse things happen in life. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. If you keep that mindset of, the next at bat, having, positive, optimistic approach, I really, truly think you'll be successful at whatever you do. And that's kind of the basis of the Pro Mentor app is let's create relationships with people that have that passion, that coaching, mentorship passion. And, let's instill it in these kids. We're going to give them all the access to, here's the training regimen you'll see with the Texas Rangers, or here's what the Columbus Crew does to train their goalkeepers. But it's so much more than, on the field. It's how do you succeed in school? How do you handle work-life balance or practice school balance? And, that's our goal is not just the physical aspect, but also that mental and mentorship approach to being an athlete.
So if you're a young baseball player or a parent of one, like how do you take advantage of the Pro Mentor app? How does it work? How do you connect with some of these mentors? Explain that a little bit.
So it's in the App Store. You download the app, you create a profile. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes. And then, depending on how detailed you want to get. So we actually have kind of an algorithm that's built out that says, okay, Andy Neary, he had Tommy John. He was a left-handed pitcher. We know that, here's our database of players that have had Tommy John, that are left-handed pitchers, that are in, low A, high A, double A, whatever level you want to take a lesson from. And here's what he focuses on training. So he focuses on training the mental aspect of pitching, or how to increase your velocity, or, whatever it may be. And then it connects them with a mentor. So then you can look at their schedule and say, okay, Andy is available at this time on this date, and I'm going to schedule a session with him. So then you can actually take it a step further and say, all right, as the amateur, as the player taking a lesson with the pro, I'm going to upload video. So I'm going to upload video of my son, throwing his last game or hitting off a tee. And then you will get that as the pro, and you'll be able, prior to the lesson, to analyze it. And then you can actually go through it and say, okay, you see how your elbow drops when you're throwing your curveball? That's why it sailed a little bit. So here, you go on the app and you'll draw a line that says, make sure your elbow is above your shoulder so that you're staying on top of it, and you're getting the proper release point.
That's awesome. Cause I think I got to believe it makes it easier for somebody to find the right mentor, not just the mentor or the coach or instructor who is in his or her town. Yeah. And, share the one example with me. You and I connected several months ago on Pro Mentor, and I love the story you shared about the one kid who was at a tournament. Didn't he jump on the horn with a mentor? Tell that story.
Yeah. So he was one of our first. He was like our beta testing, and he was a family friend kid who, I think he's 8 or 9 years old. Loves the game of baseball, and we connected him with Johnny Fasola, who's going to be on the show, next week. And they started off just, understanding, what do you love about baseball, right? What are some of your challenges? Tell me about, when you have a good game, what's working? When you have a bad game, what's not working? And they started to get more mechanical into, some of the things that he does when he's successful. And a lot of it for him was just mindset. A lot of it for him was knowing that he can do it and having the confidence that he can do it. And, after, probably 4 or 5 training sessions, hitting off a tee, live video, hitting off a tee. So there's a lot that went into, I think, the success story. We get a call, and I say we, one of the other founders and myself, who was the friend of the family. And they said, hey, I wanted to give you a call. So-and-so, he went 4 for 4. And the first thing that he said to me was, I need to do another lesson. I got to tell Johnny what happened, because what he told me to work on, I did it, and I hit a home run, and I was the tournament MVP. So it's exciting seeing that, because you're, whether or not call it a placebo, call it whatever it is, but the kid now has confidence that he didn't have before. He's doing the right training. He's doing the right drills. He's got this level of passion that I don't think he had before, knowing that he can do it, and he's had, I think, about a dozen lessons since, of just, weekly updates or biweekly updates. Okay, here's what I want you to work on this week. And, he's excited to have his mom film it or have himself film it and have that session.
Yeah, I think one of the unintended positive consequences of 2020 was the world shrunk. And you're closer to people you probably thought were inaccessible a few years ago than we've ever been right now. And your app is a great example of that. You're fingertips away from some of the best coaching you could receive in the sport. So I know you talked about the App Store. I mean, if I'm a parent right now of one of these high school athletes, what is the best way to leverage Pro Mentor, or at least get in touch with you guys to figure out what that next step is?
Especially from the parent perspective, understanding the recruiting process is not easy. It's extremely challenging. I look back at my mom, who would have done anything for me to go to, a large D1 school. And we didn't know where to go. I mean, she didn't play college softball or college sports. And it was kind of like, all right, we'll go to the local training facility. We'll ask what questions, what we think are good questions, and we'll see what they say. Then we'll ask the head baseball coach, who's actually, also the math teacher and tutors on the weekend, and we'll see what he says. And, what's really cool about this is it's not only getting you ready for the process, but it's the process in general. So, we've got a lot of parents that get on and say, hey, what showcases should my son be going to? Okay, should he be going to this perfect game event or this PBR event? or what types of steps should we be taking so that he's ready for a college visit or he goes to the college camp? Is that worth the $1,000 and the $1,500 that they're going to charge us? So it's not just about the training, but it's also about how to set them up to be successful, whatever success looks like. But, as far as what parents can do, download the app. You can take a look at it, play around with it, schedule a lesson if you want, and see if it's the right fit for you.
All right. Well, that's awesome, Michael. I love what you're doing here, because I think what I just heard you say, which I didn't even think about, was the term mentor. This app is as much mentor to parent as it is to player.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody is going to have the knowledge that you and I have of the baseball community and the baseball world. And these parents, they want their kids to succeed, and part of it is just knowing what to do, who to talk to, and make sure that you have the right guidance.
Well, and it's one thing to turn to the right people for that guidance, but two, it's important as a parent to understand you're not the one who has the answers. And I see that a lot too with the parents who think they know best. Go get the right guidance, get the right advice, and your son or your daughter is going to be much happier because of that. So let's finish up. We're going to go around the horn quickly, Michael. You ready? I ask a quick set of rapid fire questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. First question: you were a southpaw, pitching at NC State and Kent State and a little bit in the Rangers organization. 3-2 full count. What's your go-to pitch?
I'm throwing a fastball.
All right.
Yeah.
Inside, outside?
I'm throwing it right down the middle.
Right.
I'm trying to throw, Andy, I'm just trying to throw a strike.
You're just coming with the heat. I love it. Whether it was in college or in the Rangers organization, who is the best best hitter you ever faced?
I faced Aaron Judge, Chris Bryant, I mentioned Castellanos, Manny Machado. So Chris Bryant was a tough out. It's funny, you asked that question. The first thing that came to my mind was when I threw against San Diego, and I had a 3-2 count against him, and I threw a slider, and he put it over the right field fence into the dorms. So he's probably the best player that I threw against.
It's funny. I interviewed. Did you say was that Bryant or Judge?
Chris Bryant.
Yeah, I interviewed my former college coach, Scotty Duffick, a few weeks ago, who's still the head coach at UW Milwaukee. I asked him the best college player he's ever coached against, and he said Chris Bryant.
Is it? Yeah, he was good. He was really good. I mean, Judge was great, but he wasn't as polished as he is today. Chris was just the guy looked like a big leaguer when you played against him.
Yeah. No, I mean, he obviously had a massive career at San Diego. I think I know this answer, but if a World Series pitted the Indians against the Reds, who are you rooting for?
Oh, the Indians.
Okay. I think I knew that. I knew you're from Akron, so I'm going to go with that thought as well. Last statement. This is a very important question. If you could give any piece of advice today to a parent who has a baseball player in the house who is very talented, what would that advice be? Enjoy it.
Enjoy it every second you can, because at some point, they're going to not be playing anymore. They're going to throw their last pitch. They're going to have their last at bat. So enjoy every last second you can, and really, don't take anything for granted.
That's awesome. Well, Michael, I appreciate you being on, man. One, really enjoyed you talking about your college career and your journey to the professional baseball, and two, what you're doing today with Pro Mentor and how you are helping mentor both the player and the parents to make sure that the kid's making the right decision, and getting the right coaching is so important today. So thank you for actually putting maybe your time and effort into creating such an amazing app.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Andy. Really enjoyed it.
And if you're listening in, especially if you're a parent of a young athlete who's got some talent, take Michael's advice, seek the right guidance, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, because when that kid has the clarity and confidence, they will take massive action and have massive success. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Andy.